Hey everybody, you're listening to the Hisessions Hawaii podcast where we talk about everything local and beyond. I'm John Yamasato, your host, and joining me today is Kamakura, Devon Nekoba from Japan.
Yeah! In the High Life store.
In the High Life store in Japan, yes.
Kamakura.
We're not going to go through Patreon stuff and all that today, but we will thank Kupu Kupu Landscaping and Ruger Market, who are our sponsors back home.
And thank you to the patrons.
And in general, thank you to the patrons. But so we'll cut this intro a little bit short because we have, I would say, the word legend is used for some people, and you go, but I think in this case we can legitimately say legend.
Living legend.
Living legend, yes. We have living legend Kamasami Kong
Woohoo!
on the podcast. And so we came up here with Lanai for one of his travels, and he said, hey, you just want to do a podcast? He said, I can get you someone to come on the podcast. I said, well, my dream would be to sit down and talk to Kamasami Kong. And he said, done.
Let me make it happen.
You've been very nice. So, Mr. Kong, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Mr. Kong.
And we're just excited to have you.
Makes me feel old.
Well, I mean, you've had a storied career.
It's been a while, yeah. In fact, I didn't feel so old until I got on the bus yesterday and an old lady offered me her seat. It's like, oh, okay, I see.
Oh.
Well, Devon, let's for those out there who don't know Mr. Kong, because he's been here for a long time.
Yes,
so there's a good contingent of Hawaiian people that don't know the history. Why don't you give the background on Kamasami?
Kamasami has been doing radio for probably most of his adult life. Yeah. He's been in the entertainment business in one way, shape, or form, basically in Hawaii and also in Japan, for as long as I've known him. Most of us grew up on him because he was in our heads and in our ears, going to school or hanging out with your parents or whatever. His voice was there. His show was there.
Culture and fashion was influenced by you.
Oh yeah,
back
for
in
sure,
the day,
for sure.
You know?
And then he went to Japan and became even bigger. And then he visited, and then all of a sudden he was this huge force in Japan and also in Hawaii. And what's been really exciting for, I think, those of us who know him personally or have worked with him, he tries to, as much as possible, make sure those bonds between Hawaii and Japan stay strong. And he's got the time put in to actually be able to do it. Not everybody can necessarily, like I think, I know he's standing behind us, but I think him and Lanai are probably the two strongest people for that are, not technically musicians. And they foster it and they make sure that aloha spirit and that closeness has stayed intact for I don't know how many years. Yeah. So I mean, he's like a one-man commercial for Hawaii and then a commercial for Japan. So it's awesome to have him here.
Thank you for the kind words.
Wow. And he's got like a million stories too. And I'm going to shut up because we want to hear them.
Before we start, I want to thank the Highlight Store for providing some malasadas and some refreshments for us. Also, let's wipe our mouth because we have sugar.
I have sugar in my mouth.
From the malasadas.
Malasadas on our lips. And,
they cannot see us right now.
For the malasadas.
That's good. Yeah.
But Kong, I grew up with you from small kid time, learning all about everything from you, pretty much, from moving company to breaking Hawaii.
Wow.
And the reason why I thought you were such a humongous influence to me too was back in the day when I used to listen to radio.
Right.
You had your own song.
Yeah.
And I was trying so hard to find it for the past 2 weeks on YouTube, and I couldn't find it. So can you give us a background on where to find it, who wrote that song, and how did it go about and happening?
Well, it came about because they didn't want me to use my real name on the radio. This was at KORL back in 1976, beginning of 1976. They said, you're going to have to change your name. And the program director said, okay, from now on, you're going to be Jack Stone.
Ew.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, Jack Stone sounds like a porno star or something like that, right? Not that I know anything about that.
No.
I thought I should have a name that had a sound to it, like Nick Knock or Dan Ding or Bill Bell or seesaw.
Yeah.
You know, I thought, oh, it has to have a sound. And I was sitting in the production room where we make commercials, and they had a lot of sound effect records. And I was dropping the needle, and I came across the sound of a gong. And I thought, oh, that's it. I'm going to be Gong. I'm going to call myself Gong on the radio. Anyway, went into the studio to do my show that night, and the phones were ringing. We had 6 lines at KORL back then, and I'm hitting each one. It was like going to the creek and picking up a stone, and some creature would be underneath each rock, right? Yeah. Every time we answered the phone, hey, bro, I can make request letter.
Yeah.
You know? And there was this one little girl who called in, and she said, because I was hitting the gong, and I would say, I'm Gong, and then hit the gong, right?
So it was just a one name for now.
It was just
like Cher.
Yeah, it
gong.
was just I'd hit the gong and say, I'm Gong, like that.
Yeah.
And she called in and she said, hey, bro, what's your name? And I said, I call myself Gong. And I said it really fast like that. I call myself Gong.
Yeah.
And she said, Kamasami Kong.
Whoa.
I thought, so it went from I call myself Gong to Kamasami Kong, and I thought, oh, that's it.
All these years I never knew that. That's cool.
So who wrote the theme song, though?
Now, this is a big coincidence because around that same time, the movie King Kong was popular. That one of the iterations, right?
The one with Jessica Lange.
And Jimmy Castor wrote a song called King Kong.
Okay.
So I heard that, and I heard that Kamasami Kong. I said, my God, that's it. Kamasami Kong, call myself Kong. This is going to work. And it began like that. And so you can still find that song by the Jimmy Castor Bunch online. It's on YouTube. It's not on the radio anymore. I don't think anybody plays it, but that's where it came from. It was just a giant coincidence.
Yeah. Do you remember how it sounded?
The only thing I remember is that noise that he just made.
No, he went.
It's Kamasami Kong.
Yeah.
That's, you know.
And then they go like Kamasami King Kong, Kamasami Kong. Yeah, like that.
Exactly.
I still remember it, man.
Kyle was trying to sing it to us, and we were going, what?
Yeah.
What? And he goes, no, it sounded like this. We're like, okay, whatever. But he was actually right.
But dude, jingles. They work. They work. There's jingles that stay in my head. Have stayed in my head for 30 years.
But that's why, like, for Kong and for Lanai, I hope to keep bringing this up because he's gonna be on the next pod. But
yeah,
they were the 2 guys that I knew that had theme songs. Like, they came on, and the show starts with a theme song. Yeah. So it's interesting to see the line between the 2 of them, because I mean, Lanai came in a little bit after you were around. So, but he remembered that part about it, that the theme song is just as important, setting that tone, so that people know what show they're getting. Because nowadays they don't do that. Yeah. They basically come on and go, hey.
And it's instantly branded.
Yeah. And Lanai is the only one who still has a theme song.
I don't think any program director would allow that to happen these days.
Yeah.
No, the way radio has changed.
Yeah.
Everything is corporate, and they don't want to take any chances. They don't want to have any DJ stand out too much, because if you have big ratings, they have to pay you big money to keep you. Otherwise, the other radio station is going to try to get you.
So back in the day when you were doing KKUA radio, what kind of station was it?
Well, first off,
was it a rock and roll station?
It was a contemporary station.
It was all over the place.
We were playing everything from Earth, Wind, and Fire to Peter Frampton, and of course we were playing. I was always playing Kalapana and C&K, and the kids would call in. I had the telephone talent line. I don't know if you remember that, but the kids would call in on the phone, and they'd play the ukulele and sing,
That's cool.
Moon that is shining tonight, trying to cover Mackie.
Back then, Kalapana C&K blended right into popular music in Hawaii. Not just Hawaiian music.
They were too hip to be played on the Hawaiian stations, and they weren't hip enough to be played on some of the other stations that considered themselves to be pop stations back in the day. So there was this niche that was like available, and I heard that, and I realized, Kalapana was just so popular, and everybody was requesting songs by Mackie Fury or Billy Cowie or C&K back then, or Robert Beaumont and Jerry Santos. Those were some of our staples.
The sound was universal.
Oh, it was. It was. Yeah, it was.
To this day, it's universal.
Yeah. And the guitar playing from DJ was just...
DJ Pratt Stratosphere, man.
Yeah.
And
Incredible.
Peter Moon, Bionic Fingers, Mr. Bionic Fingers out there.
Did you have a music director at the time, or like back then was it?
Yeah,
because we had you have PDs now. You have PDs. You have a music director, and they're not necessarily the same person.
We had Ed Canoy was our music director. Ed.
Even I know that name.
Ed is now over on Maui. I think he's working at KISS Radio. He does the morning show. We're still in contact after all these years. Still great friends. And he was the music director, and Ron Jacobs, rest his soul, rest in peace, Ron. He was our effing program director who effing had every effing word was an F word.
That's true. Yeah,
that's true.
The day he hired me to come into the radio station to do the first show, I'll never forget what he said. I thought, here we are at KKUA and everything is going to be formatted. Top of the hour, we're going to play an ID, followed by the A song in heavy rotation. Then there's going to be a place where you can read a card and say, this is KKUA 690, something like that. Ron said, frickin' records are over there, the frickin' phone system is over there, the door is over there, frickin' bathroom is down the hall, that's the turntable over there. He said, figure it out, be number one or you're out of here.
Wow. Was this post Poi Boys or before Poi Boys?
After Poi Boys. This was considerably sometime after Poi Boys, because Ron had gone to the mainland to become a program director there.
Okay.
And so he came back to Hawaii, and he was hired by Jock Fernhead, who owned KKUA at that time. And he was living up country Maui, cruising around, and he was listening to my show on KORL. And at that time on KORL, it was the rainy season, and I was encouraging virgins to call in and scream, and I would put an echo in the background and say, we're going to throw you into the volcano to stop the rain. So I said, any virgins listening right now, call me here at, what was it, KORL. We're going to throw you in the volcano and stop the rain, something like that.
But you can't get away with that thing.
Yeah,
I don't think so. Can we get away with that on this podcast?
Oh, you can get away with anything on this podcast.
You totally do it.
So if there are any virgins...
But Kong, I mean, when you got here, a lot of people, I mean, you've lived in Hawaii so long, everybody considers you a kama'aina, not just in Hawaii, but also in Japan.
Yeah.
But I mean, is that where you grew up? Is that where you... Because you've always been this enigma. Like nobody, you know what I mean? Like Kong just sort of jumped fully formed into the radio, sphere, and everybody went, "Oh crap, Kamasami Kong."
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But if you don't want to share it, it's totally fine.
Okay.
But it's just the background. I've never known it, and I've known you for a long time, but I just never knew where did you come from, man?
Well, you've heard of the Big Bang, right? So one day in Hawaii there was a Big Bang, and I appeared, and it was just like that. No, I grew up in a little town called Hamilton, Ohio, which is just a little bit north of Cincinnati. And I got drafted into the Army during the Tet Offensive back in 68, 69, and they wanted me to become a body for bullets to be sent to Vietnam. But since I had some background in radio, I went to Miami University to study broadcasting. They said, well, we want you to be a broadcaster. We don't have anything in Vietnam right now, but we want you to go to Seoul, Korea, and do radio in Korea.
Kind of like that Robin Williams.
It was exactly like that. The movie Good Morning Vietnam, it was exactly what I was doing in Korea. I had the same uniform, the same equipment that they had in the movie, all the same stuff. Yeah,
Wow.
It was
That
just
must have
like
been
that.
an experience, huh?
And during vacations, I would come over here to Japan to explore. And I thought, well, this is...
Turn this just a little bit this way.
Oh, okay.
It was rubbing against the shirt.
Oh, sorry. A little technical support. I appreciate that. So, so I was coming over here to Japan, and I was noticing what was happening with the infrastructure and how they were making the roads and highways and the subways and everything that was going on.
Oh my gosh, yeah, you saw all of that stuff before it was even here.
Yeah, way before. There was, At that time, there was a McDonald's that opened here, and it was like the only McDonald's in Asia at that time, and it was in Ginza, just behind Matsuzakaya department store. And it was a very different place back then. But I thought, wow, this place has great potential. I liked how the subways could connect with the department stores. I thought, somebody's really thinking about what they're doing. Civil engineering here is great. And I thought, well, someday I want to come back, or maybe someday I might even want to live here. So,
even all the way back then, you already had thoughts.
I was thinking about it.
Were you single, married during that time? I had to convince family.
Oh, I can't talk about that at all.
Say no more.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I'll say no more.
Yeah.
But I still love you. You know that.
But so, what brought you to Hawaii? Because it sounds like you could have just left the army, came straight over here to Japan, and started doing whatever, doing radio here.
That's a great question, actually. When I got out of the army, well, first off, I should say that I was having a good time in Korea. I was having a great time in Korea, and I was supposed to get out of the army.
Okay.
But I thought, I really don't want to. I'm enjoying living in Korea and the food and the beer and having a good time with friends and girls and stuff like
And you
that.
can speak English the whole time,
And I was teaching English in our radio
right.
station.
What age were you at that time?
I was, 22, 21, 22,
The
23.
perfect time,
Have fun.
Yeah,
That age.
absolutely. Oh, it was a great time. And I had no interest in going back to the States at that time. So then ETS came, getting out of the service, and I went to California, spent a little time there, and got out of the Army. And then I got a job in Eugene, Oregon.
Oh.
And it was wet, it was raining,
Back then, Eugene was a very different place than it is now, for sure.
I don't know what it is now, but
There's a pretty good Hawaii contingent up there.
oh, really?
Yeah. So I do when I travel, we do usually hit Eugene as one of our stops because there's a lot of ukulele players.
Oh,
in
great.
Eugene. Yeah.
Are you
But
teaching up there?
No, I go with Herb Ota Jr. The son.
yeah.
He's the one to teach. I'm just tag along.
I see. So I wound up in Eugene, and I didn't like the rain, and I just was not having fun there.
Yeah.
And I was reading Billboard magazine one day. Billboard was the trade paper of the time with, it had the ads in the back, the classified ads about jobs. It had all the information about music, the top 100 songs. And there was an ad in the classified section that said, how would you like to live and work in the most beautiful place in the world? Honolulu, Hawaii. And I thought, yes, that's my ticket out of here. It said, send tape and resume to Lan Roberts at KORL Radio.
Wow.
So
This was an ad.
Yeah, it was because of an ad in
Was the pay comparable to it in mainland standards of radio back then for Hawaii?
I was, when I
Or was
first...
it just the allure of Hawaii that said, I don't care what the pay is, man.
Yeah, it was that. I didn't really care about the pay.
He was single, man. He's ready.
I was not single at that time.
Okay.
And I'd...
keep getting into trouble, man.
Well, he said he still cares about it.
It's okay.
It's statute of limitation.
Yeah.
We're talking, 40 years ago.
So, but we're still in contact. We have a great relationship.
Yes.
So everything is okay, right? I hope.
I'm sure it is.
No, we have a great relationship, and we have a daughter named Healoha Nani. She was born and raised in Hawaii, and she's now living in Redding, California. Anyway, aloha Nani.
Okay, wait.
Yeah.
Let's pause right
Oh, that's
there.
right, because you got to change it up.
Yep, I just gotta stop and restart the camera. And
Okay,
keep
where
going.
were
We're
we?
at your daughter.
Daughter, and
Saying
you
hi.
wanted to know? Oh, the ad, the classified ad.
yeah.
Classified
Okay,
ad.
so I need to pick it up.
No, you don't have to pick up anything. We'll just.
We just splice it.
Okay.
Just real quick, please.
Yeah, because this one's it doesn't work for you.
I said please. That's your malasada, bro. Oh, wait, should we give this one to? Should we do this one to Lana? Because we did it to.
Yeah, wait, she wanted one not a masala. He ate one already.
Wait, 1 second.
Yeah, this is not like this is not like TV professional level.
Uh-huh.
So if people see us walking around and doing stuff,
Yeah, we usually just walk around.
there's no
There's absolutely no artifice to this.
there's no illusion of professionals.
I see. Okay.
No illusion of
We
professional.
won't be able to pull it off. That's why.
I'll make the stories a little more psychedelic then.
Yeah,
How's
just
that?
go off.
Okay, so sorry for the break.
Oh, and then sorry. If there's anything in particular that you want to take out, we can edit it. before we
Yeah, because
post
it's not
it.
live.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's not live.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
say everything you want, and
Yeah.
if you want it, you go, oh, let's take that.
I'm okay with everything I've said.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a pro.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry for the break, but
Yeah.
let's go back to Eugene, Oregon. You get an ad, and then now you're on your way to Honolulu, Hawaii.
Well, no, I should mention that after I saw the ad, it said to send a tape and resume to
that's
the
right,
radio
that's right.
station,
Yeah,
right?
right.
And I figured every DJ in America is going to be sending a tape and resume to try to get that gig in Honolulu, Hawaii, right? So I thought what I'm going to do is make my envelope look different. So I went to a stamp store and I bought all kinds of international stamps to put on the package so it would really stand out. Of course, I put U.S. postage on it so it would go through, but I knew that if I put a lot of different stamps on there, Lan Roberts, the program director at KORL, would have to see that and say, what's this? And he'd have to open it and say, what kind of person is this? So that's how I got the job.
Smart.
So smart.
Yeah, it was just, it was luck. And I got a call and he said, can you come over here? I said, when? He said, next week. So
Oh my gosh.
I told the people at the radio, I was working at a station called KASH. It was an oldies but goodies station. 4 antennas, which means it was highly directional. You could hear it on the main street of Eugene, Oregon, but if you turned off of any street, you couldn't hear it anymore.
What was your DJ name back then?
Bob Zix. I was using my real
Your
name. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Now that you have to cut out. You're not allowed to use that, okay?
No one knows your secret identity.
You should think I'd figure out a way to blank that so they can't see.
It's
I
been in
can't.
the
You
newspaper.
actually mentioned it on that nice podcast.
Yeah.
It's been in the newspaper
Oh,
before.
okay.
So
He's kidding.
I just don't want the tax collector to get my name. You're not going to get my name, are you? Okay.
But I mean, it's cool because once you got to Hawaii and you started working in radio, I think your mind was already working about how to incorporate what was happening in Hawaii and in the music scene into what you were doing, which again was not necessarily something that always happened. In fact, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when I lived on the Big Island, right, when I grew up, radio on the Big Island, radio on any other island besides Oahu, very different, right? The music is a pastiche of stuff. So again, you're hearing Kansas, and then all of a sudden you're hearing CK, and then there's 3 songs from Earth, Wind, and Fire, and then I mean it doesn't matter. They're like whatever, you play whatever you want. And I think your show was one of the first shows that was able to do that on Oahu, where they just kind of went, well, gonna just let Kong do what he's doing because he's number one, so you play whatever you want. And then so when we listened to you, you would actually be announcing a Kalapana song, which was shocking for a lot of us. It was great, but and then you'd also be able to meet them and hang out. Like Gaylord Holomalia is a really good friend of yours, but you were friends with all of the guys in the band, and you really seemed like you were one of the first ones to try to do that as much as possible.
That connection with the local talent and play mainland pop
of
at
course.
the same time.
So he was in, so you knew about all of that stuff, and it's wild.
I had some great guidance, some great friends who helped me along. Donnie Martin being one. You know Donnie. Donnie is now working with Brother Nolan, but he used to be the guy who took care of Mackie Fury all the time. And Mac and I became great friends early on because Mac was just the sweetest guy you'd ever want to know. He was just such a, if we say in Japan, he was such a heartful guy.
Do you have a story about Mac that you want to share?
Yeah. Oh, sure. Okay. Here's a good one. He had just left Kalapana on the mainland. Was he kicked out? Did he leave on his own? Some of you know the story. I don't want to go into that. But he came to the radio station. We were at 765 Amana Street back then, just behind KGMB TV, between KGMB TV and the Pagoda Hotel, that little street. 765.
Good spot.
There was a parking lot underneath.
I used to work there.
You used to work there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You know where that is, right?
I was actually in your studios I used to work in your studios. That's why I was like, yeah, I've arrived. Anyway, sorry. Anyway.
So Mac came and we started talking, and he said, I've left Kalapana, but I'm still writing songs. And we went downstairs because I got off the air, and we sat on that little bench that was underneath, and he had his guitar, and he said, can I play this song for you? And I thought, yeah, sure. And he started to play it, and I thought, we got to record this. And I had my boombox, because I was always doing air checks on my boombox back in the day. An air check, tell people what an air check is briefly.
An air check basically is when you're on air, they record what you're doing on air, and then after the show is over, you sit with the PD and they tell you all the stuff that you did wrong as you listen through it. But for some people, including Kong, I think it's a really good way to know what you're doing well.
Right.
What you sort of self-evaluation of what you're doing, and you're professional enough that you did that.
Yes.
I really should have done more of that, and I probably would have still been in radio. But yeah.
So I did that every night. Anyway, I had the boombox there with me, and it had microphones built in. And I said, Mac, let's go into the stairwell, because there's kind of an echo in there, right?
Yeah.
There was an echo. So it was Mac, Ivan Shigaki, who was my assistant back in those days. Ivan is now a boater, or what do you call him? He has a boat. You have a boat, right, Ivan?
Boater's good.
And he's out there every day on his boat.
Nice.
And it was Donnie Martin. And the four of us were sitting in the stairwell with Mac and his guitar, and he sang this song called I Remember You.
That's one of my favorite Mackie songs.
Isn't that?
Yeah, it's beautiful.
He sang it for the first time to be recorded in that stairwell. The recording sounded good. And I brought it upstairs the next night, and I put it on a cart, played it on the air, and with our compressors and the sound, what do you call that? Sound, it goes through it goes through some kind of a magic box, and it pumps it up.
Yeah.
Compressors and
Yeah.
Anyway, so on the air, and we were AM back in those days. FM, nobody was listening to FM.
Oh, wow.
AM was where it was at.
Yeah.
And so this song being blasted out on the radio like that sounded magnificent.
From a stairwell.
Yeah, from a stairwell at 765 on Mana Street. And it was like, wow, Mac is on his own. And from then on, he formed the Mackie Fury Band, and of course the rest is history.
I mean, when you heard that song in the stairwell, you probably knew already what was going to happen with that song.
Oh, absolutely.
Chicken Skin.
Oh, right. Oh, when I heard him, he was strumming it on the bench outside first, I thought, oh my God, this is an amazing song. I mean, Don Ho did I'll Remember You,
Yeah.
but
Right.
Mackie's version it was so dynamic, and it had the strings and everything in the final production. And I think the guys at Aloha Got Soul, they have that Mackie Fury original album that it was on.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
They re-released it.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they re-released all the albums that he did and stuff like that.
And
It's
you
really
re-released
cool.
all the Kalapana too.
Yeah.
On vinyl now.
Treasures. Those
Yeah.
things are treasures. Yeah. And the music of Kalapana was just so great.
Yeah.
Mackie was such a great songwriter. Milani too. You put DJ in the mix with his guitar playing. Kurt in the early days, Kurt
Yeah.
Thompson did the keyboards. Then Gaylord picked it up, and Gaylord knocked it out of the park.
Yeah.
Garin on drums, and now Todd playing saxophone.
yeah.
Todd's amazing.
Todd is amazing. And
Yeah.
who was it? Michael Paulo before
Paulo,
him,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, that's fantastic.
You know that right before, John tells me one day, hey, we got DJ coming on your podcast, on our podcast. I'm like, I get to meet my guitar hero. I was so stoked. And literally a month before he got to be on it, he passed.
Oh.
So I was super bummed I didn't get to talk to him,
Yeah.
But Gaylord's been doing such a wonderful job with continuing that, the legacy of it. He went to one
We
of the
went to a
shows.
Blue Note concert with after all that happened, and me and John are sitting in the audience, and they go, "Oh, we like to sing with Mackie right now, a song,"
Yeah.
and the video comes up behind, and they're playing with him, and they did that to everybody, and it was such a great experience to see.
Gaylord coordinated.
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
wasn't
Gaylord
a
did that
dry eye in the entire place.
I'm sure.
It was amazing. Yeah.
Mackie had it all back in the day. I mean, he was a good-looking guy,
Yeah.
talented guy, warm and friendly guy, and just a great entertainer with so much charisma.
Yeah.
He really had the magic.
But his brain for writing pop hook stuff
Yeah.
was unparalleled. People would freak out at what he was able to do. In fact, our one of our good friends, Virgil Jeppes, he played in a band called Chant, and they were doing it, and they told us this story, and it blew our minds because I didn't even realize that he had done this. But I guess when they were recording their first album, they were doing a song called "Love You for Life," and I didn't realize this, but they knew Mackie. They call him Uncle Mackie. Yeah, and Virgil played with them, and so he called up Mackie, I think, and played the song for him. And Mackie goes, "Well, if you just do this and this and this, and you change this thing, yeah, better song." Yeah. and sure enough, it's one of my favorite songs on that album. Yeah. And Mackie just had that ability to turn the phrase or change the arrangement just this much.
He could sing the alphabet and you still want to listen to it.
Yeah. And Milani as well. I mean, Milani was amazing too.
Yeah. Mac had the knack.
Yeah. And Milani was hilarious because up until the time he passed, the guy was just this ball of energy, and he's dancing on stage. You're like, what is he doing? And DJ's into his guitar, and he's just concentrating. Milani's messing with him, and you're going, what?
Yeah. My Milani story is when we were just starting Pure Heart, we would do the Perry and Price in the morning. Yeah. There's a show or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so it's one of our first times being on Perry and Price. I'm all excited, you get to the table, all our family's there, And then before us was Milani. Like, Milani was on. And brother just shows up. He just has his guitar in his hand, like no more case, nothing. He goes up, plugs in, no strap. So he's holding the guitar, like just playing it, standing up with no strap and everything, and just left. I'm like, whoa, that is a boss. You could tell this was just like
nothing for him.
Yeah,
right?
nothing for him.
Natural.
Yeah. So easy.
And it's wonderful that the music of Kalapana, the music of CNK is
it resonates.
Today. And I don't know if you could say it's making a comeback because it's always sort of been there, but there's more of an appreciation. And they were so big in Japan. Did you have something to do with that too? Because we didn't even talk about you getting to Japan part.
A little bit, yeah. I was making records for CBS Sony back in the day. A lot of people who were visiting Hawaii back in those days brought their cassette recorders, and they were recording my shows and bringing the shows back to Japan on cassette and duplicating those shows and passing them out to their friends. And it was really hip because at that time, radio stations here in Japan, they would play a song and they would let it fade out completely before they would talk. And the song fades out and they would say, that was Mick Jagger and the Rolling Stones. Next, Cyndi Lauper. And there would be that pause. There was no flow. And my whole thing back in the day, I was surfing the intros of the songs, I was actually surfing. I used a special little compressor called a Shure, I'm going to forget that, Shure Level Lock. And I plugged my microphone into that and then plugged it into the board. And it gave me the perfect pitch, the perfect amount of compression that I could fit right into the song at the same level as the singer of the song.
Oh, nice.
See it in and out.
So it was. I would let the song start to fade out, and then it would start the next song right away. So there was no pause. And then I would talk on the intro until the singer started singing the song. Right? We call that talking up the vamp. Right? And I noticed that when I was cruising around with my friends in Hawaii, I'd be sitting in the back seat. Everybody. Never mind. They would be, we'd be listening to the radio. And there would come a point where the song would end and the DJ would start to talk when they were listening to other stations. And invariably, somebody would punch the button and go to another station where there was music. Yeah. And I thought, you can never let the music die. Yeah. You got to keep it going. Forward momentum.
That's right.
So I let the songs kind of fade out, start the next song, boom, and then I'd talk the intro. That way they could never change the station. So it increased what we call TSL, time spent listening, which makes your ratings go way up.
Yeah.
Yep.
And at that time, I was receiving about a 21% of the audience in my 7 to midnight show.
That's awesome.
The only person who's ever done anything like that was Aku back in the day. And during this one time, I actually beat Aku.
Oh, wow.
But he was on in the morning.
he
He
was
had
on
a
in the
much
morning.
larger
Yeah.
audience. He had a larger audience, but at night I had a smaller audience, but I had a larger percentage of the people who were listening.
And then when it moved to FM, how did that work out? Like, what did they just sort of wholesale? Okay, take the show, move it to FM.
Well, there were so many things that were happening back in those days. We didn't move it to FM because new owners came in. Coca-Cola came in and bought the station from Jock Fernhead.
Oh.
Jock Fernhead was the owner. He moved to the Big Island and retired. And Coca-Cola brought their own new management team in and their own new program director in. And he was listening to he didn't know anything about Hawaiian music, right?
Of course not.
And he kind of had an idea about the kind of music that he thought KKUA should be playing back in the day, which included a lot of Warren Egon, Magnet and Steel or Magnet and Stone, I forgot.
Oh,
and it was kind of like, what? I don't get any requests for this music. And he said, you're going to have to stop playing that Kalapana stuff and that C&K stuff and all that Hawaiian music. You got to get rid of that. And that Michael Jackson Teeny Bop Pablum that you're playing, you got to stop playing that Michael Jackson stuff. And at that time, Rock With You was my most requested song.
Yeah.
And he said, you got to stop playing that. You got to stop playing Kalapana. And I said, but that's what we're getting the most requests for. He said, well, go ahead and do it. I dare you. And I thought, well, okay, I'll take the dare. And I played it throughout that night. Next night, I came into the station at 765 Amana. They said, oh, no, you don't have to go into the studio tonight. There's a box. Your earphones and all your stuff is in there. We cleaned your locker out.
Welcome to radio.
And you're done here. So, and they pushed an envelope across the table, and they said, that's your final pay, and you're done. And I started laughing. And I thought, how crazy is this? These guys, they're idiots. They have no idea what they're doing. Michael Jackson, no Kalapana, what? So anyway, I thought, okay, I need to get drunk. I need to really get drunk. So I went to Long's and I bought a box of wine, a box, because I wanted to get rip-roaring. I just wanted to forget it. I thought, anyway. So I got home, opened the box, the phone rang, and it was Jeff Coelho. Jeff Coelho, who was at that time, formerly he was the sales manager at KKUA. We worked together there with Chris Hyde and some other notables. And Jeff had left KKUA to go to KIKI to take over the general manager position. And he called on the phone. He said, Kong, I heard you're a free agent now. I said, how did you know about that? I just got home. He said,
Word travels fast.
Word travels fast. Salespeople talk.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow. He said, yeah, I'd like you to come over here. I want to put you on part-time at first, but I have a bigger plan for you in the future.
Nice.
So just come over. We'll take care of everything. And yeah, we'd like you to start right away. So it was like, okay, from being fired to being hired the next day. Yeah.
Now, when you were doing the DJing on the radio, were you juggling already Hawaiian Moving Company and all those other shows at the same time, or did that happen post?
Hawaiian Moving Company came about with Larry Fleece, who was a director, and Phil Arnone, who was the program director of KGMB. And disco was just starting to become popular in those days. It was like, what was it, Saturday Night Fever.
Yes.
That was the big movie back
Wasn't
then.
it like Hawaiian American Bandstand from the Hawaiian Moving Company at one point?
At one point it was.
Yeah.
But the original version, we would do 4 shows at a time.
Oh.
At Spats. You remember
Oh,
Spats?
yeah, I remember Spats. Oh, yeah.
Spats in the basement of Sheraton Waikiki,
Yeah.
where you
The Passion Dancers and
you had to pay to buy a drink.
Yeah.
I always thought that was kind of, why do I have to pay to buy a drink? You have to pay a cover charge to get in so you can have the right to buy a drink. Anyway, they had the psychedelic floor. I don't know if you remember
Yep.
that.
Didn't
Had
it
all
light
the-
up like
yeah,
Saturday Night
lit
Fever
up and
kind of
stuff.
thing?
Yeah,
Saturday Night Fever.
exactly. And they had the mirror ball on the top, right, spinning around.
We're so showing our age right now.
I
Because
know.
John's going, I have no idea about
Yeah,
any
this
of
is
this.
all
Yeah.
beyond me.
You weren't born yet.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah,
Oh,
Time
turn
out.
off and turn on.
Yep. Last one.
Kiss. Spats.
Spats, okay. No, not Spats. It was Infinity.
Oh.
Did I say Spats?
You said
Yeah.
Spats.
Okay, so we
I've
have
been
to
to
go.
Spats before.
I did do it at Spats also,
Yeah.
but We moved to Spats after Infinity.
Spats over where Breaking Hawaii was, right, at the time too.
Breaking Hawaii, no, we did Breaking Hawaii.
You guys are doing well.
Okay. We did Breaking Hawaii in the studios of KGMB TV. But I mentioned Spats before, and I was wrong because I should have said Infinity. Infinity was a nightclub in the Sheraton Waikiki. It was in the basement, right? And we had the floors that lit up and the mirror ball. Yeah. Andy Bumatai was just breaking at that time. He was just starting to come on, and he was performing at Top of the Shop between shows when Kalapana would play, and then they'd take a break, and then maybe the group Summer would come on after that.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, and Andy would go on in between. And he came out one time and he said, "Bro, you never watch my show, but I'm a funny guy. I'm really funny." And he said, "Why don't you take me out to one of your high school?" I used to do these lunchtime pep rally shows, right? And I said, "Sure, come along, no problem. I'll give you a chance to have fun with the kids." And we were out at Lelehua High School, and I had my boom box, and I thought, okay, this guy thinks he's funny. Well, let's put it on. So I recorded it, right? And it's an it's an auditorium filled with kids, hundreds of kids, and he was just nailing it. He had the whole.
Andy was in his teens at that time too.
No, he had to be in his 20s, something like that. But he was funny. He was really genuinely funny, doing a whole new type of comedy, stand-up comedy. He called himself Hawaii's first stand-up comedian.
I think he kind of was.
He was.
He was.
And he killed at the high school pep rallies. Yeah. And the applause that came back and the laughter that came back was overwhelming. Try to imagine an auditorium of kids laughing, having a good time. And I recorded it all, brought it back to the studio, put it on a cart, put it on the air. And again, with the compression and the limiters, it just made it sound like he was the funniest guy in the world. And he was the funniest guy in Hawaii at that time. And of course, that led to...
He's still super funny.
He's got shows coming up in the mainland right?
Yeah.
Was
He's touring around with Augie and Lanai, actually.
Is that right?
Yeah.
He's a genius. He's really a genius. Not only a comedic genius, but he's an engineering genius too, because he set up his own TV station.
His own studio.
But he's also what's nice about Andy is, and like you, I mean, I think the people who've come before, there was a real desire to make sure that you passed it on. So he's really worked hard at making sure that other comics, like somebody, I think James Manea was saying when he was working with, because he works with them now, but he'd watch him come off stage and go, okay, so this joke, you gotta take this thing and move this over here and take this and move that over there, and then you know what I mean, and then it links better and it's funnier. Yeah. And if you listen to what he says, they go, oh yeah, okay,
makes sense.
And it's really cool, and that's a testament to him. But
well, before we get too far, I do want to talk about the move to Japan.
Yeah,
sure. After.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that a little bit. So you make it here, and maybe we'll skip a little bit of how exactly you got here. But what was it like coming back full circle after being in Asia, going back to the U.S., Hawaii, and then now back in Asia to do what you do?
Well, I was working with a guy named Nick Kato. Nick was representing CBS Sony Music at that time. Nick is still out there doing photography. He used to be a coordinator for advertising agencies that wanted to film their commercials in Hawaii, girls on the beach, bikinis, or some exotic location. He coordinated all of that. Okay. So he represented CBS Sony. We made this record called DJ in Hawaii, and they wanted me to do a record. I said, I don't sing, I don't play an instrument. What do you want me to do? They said, just talk. Just talk. Just talk? He said, yeah, we're gonna what we have in mind is we're gonna sell a mixer and turntables to the boys over in Japan. They can mix your voice into the music that they want, so they can create their own Kamasami Kong show. So they put your voice on one record and their music on the other, and they mix it together and they make their own cassette tapes that they can play in their cars with a surfboard on top, because that was the thing to do back in the day. And it caught on. The record sold like crazy. And as a result, I wound up on a record with an artist known as, well, his name is Tatsuro Yamashita. I don't know if you know who he is. No? If you don't know who he is, you gotta look him up. Yamashita Tatsuro Yamashita. And he makes some of the best music, pop music here in Japan. He's probably the #1 artist. He sounds, when you listen to his music, you're going to think, oh, Kalapana. Okay?
Really?
Yeah. Look it up later. Not now. We're busy right now.
Is he singing in English or Japanese?
He sings in English and Japanese.
Okay.
And he's still touring. He's still doing concerts these days.
Wow.
One of the biggest artists. You cannot get tickets to his concerts, although he's concertizing constantly. But everybody wants to go to one of his concerts. He's probably the most popular artist in Japan right now.
I gotta look him up.
Absolutely. We'll play some of his music a little bit later. But anyway, so I was invited to come to Japan, doing shows at shopping centers and doing concert appearances and all kinds of other stuff like that. Time went on, and there was a news station that was going to be coming on the air in Osaka called FM 802, and they wanted me to come over full time to do shows. So I would come over here for 10 days and do live shows. Then I'd go back to Hawaii, and I was working with Kit Ebersbach. Kit had a studio, and we were recording shows there and sending them back to Japan for while I was back in Hawaii. Then I picked up another job in Taiwan, and I was doing regular shows over there, and I was also their consultant, and helped them create a new program that was similar to Brown Bags to Stardom, which I started with Jeff Coelho and Susan Kunimura at KIKI. That's another whole story altogether.
Yeah,
I got a lot of stories here.
I know.
So anyway, back at that time, I was traveling every 10 days from Taiwan, Tokyo, Osaka, Honolulu. 18 years I did that. Wow. 18 years of flying back and forth, living in a perpetual world of jet lag. It was so bad. It was so bad, in fact, that one time I got back and I was supposed to have a recording session at 7 p.m. And I woke, after I arrived, I wanted to take a nap or something like that, as you do. Yeah. And I woke up and I saw that it was like 6:30. I thought, oh my God, I'm going to be late to the station. I got to call Kit and tell him that I'm going to be late. So I call him. I said, Kit, I'm so sorry. I'll be right there. I just need to take a quick shower. I'll be there in just a moment. He said, Kong, do you know what time it is? I said, yes, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. Please forgive me. I know I'm never late, but I'll be there as soon as I can. He said, Kong, do you know what time it is? I said, yeah, I can see it's about 15 minutes before 7, but just give me a minute. He said, it's 7 in the morning.
We're PM.
Yeah. But, at 7 p.m., 6:45, 7 p.m., dark and light are pretty much the same in morning and night, right? And so I looked out the window and I thought, oh my God, I'm late. That's how bad jet lag can be sometimes.
Man.
Well, the other thing too is I'm not sure everybody knows, like you mentioned a little bit about how different radio was in Japan, and it continues to be that way because your show became very big here, but a lot of it is because like you did on Oahu.
Right.
You incorporated a lot of the local music, but you also brought in the Hawaii guys.
Yes, and I combined pop music, global pop music, with Hawaiian pop and Japanese pop, which is something that almost nobody else was doing.
Yeah.
So.
And you moved so freely within all of them.
Yeah.
And like you knew all these artists. It was crazy. I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
But, okay, and in Japan, did they have a program director? Or did they just kind of say, Kong, we want you to come over here. You do whatever you want.
No, we had a director, but we collaborated on the music. We talked about music. What do you like? What, we would talk about. We'd listen to some new music together, and we try to figure out what we should play, what we should include on our show, and what, no thanks, we'll pass on this or that, But there was no heavy rotation like what we had back in the day of KKUA or KIKI, where we had, like 12 songs in hot and heavy rotation. Mm-hmm. Those are the songs that you would hear every 2 hours. Like, what was that one song that drove me crazy? Do-Wah Diddy.
Oh,
remember that?
Oh my gosh!
Just walking down the street.
No, not that one. Oh. It was he had the vocal box.
Roger,
Diddy.
Roger,
Roger Troutman. Yeah. And that was a monster hit.
It was. I used to play it all the time.
Oh. And the kids would call in, as, hey, bro, you can play that song, Do I Dee.
Yeah.
Do I Dee.
Oh, my gosh.
But,
That's
yeah.
crazy.
You've been immersed in music your entire life. Are you a musician yourself and either sing or guitar or what? Do you play any other instrument or sing?
I play harmonica a little bit. I started off playing clarinet when I was a kid in junior high school. And no, that was about it.
I was going to say, I don't blame you if you don't, because traveling between Taiwan, Japan, Hawaii is kind of hard to pick up a hobby.
Yeah. My hobby was sleeping and drinking on planes. That was about it.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
It was always a long flight I would fly from Haneda back to Honolulu on China Airlines back in the day, because there were no other flights from Haneda to Honolulu.
That's right.
So if you wanted to go to Hawaii back in those days, you had to go to Narita Airport to fly to Honolulu.
Interesting.
So for the artists that are out there now that are in Hawaii doing music, do you think Japan is still a viable? I guess we have the High Life store here. There's definitely still a pretty big connection between Japan and Hawaii.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
Yeah.
It's not so much being from Hawaii. That's part of it. That's part of the magic. But being good is the most important part. Being not just good, but being great. That's really important to get airplay here in Japan. And there's no guarantee, there's no formats like what there used to be. You might get a play here and there, but nobody's going to be trying to make a hit for you anymore. That just doesn't happen very much.
Well, what else has changed in the radio scene? I know that, compared to back in your day. Yeah. So I know that, through the 80s we had the, not you. But on the mainland, they had the payola thing, and that's how people got on. And that all went away kind of in the 90s. But now that the internet is here, have you seen the transition come? And what's been going on in Japan, at least with radio?
Well, radio's taken a big hit since the internet. We have every kind of radio station on the internet, and you can pick up any station anywhere. In fact, we're here in Japan, in a clothing store, and we were listening to KCCN just a few minutes ago. And that's amazing, right?
Yeah.
That could never happen before. And it was live from Hawaii, so we're hearing the commercials and everything, right? I didn't notice a DJ, did you?
I did not. FM 100 does not have very many DJs.
Is that right?
No.
Oh, because I was listening for that. My third ear was listening.
A lot of the stations now, once it gets to midday, they just don't. So you've got to be. The morning shows are key. The midday, there's nobody really. They have maybe one person who talks every 5 songs. And unless you're, sorry, I keep bringing him up, but unless you're Lanai, afternoons, nobody listens.
Is that right?
Yeah. So you have to have a name. You have to be Lanai on the radio, and then all of a sudden everybody listens. And then evening, it does the same thing, where unless you're doing a sort of a request show or dedication show, nobody's paying attention because they just listen to Spotify now. Yeah, but that's why I was wondering about Japan radio, because Japan radio, I was lucky enough to get a chance to do one of those shows. It was like that. I sat in a booth in Hawaii, and they said, here's the 10 songs we're going to do for the hour. Just talk in between the songs. And I went, which one? Every single song. Just talk between every single song. Yeah. And I went, well, why? Because that's what they want you to do. They just want to hear a voice that's speaking in English that we know is from Hawaii, and we're going to put it on the air. And when I came to Japan, I actually walked, it was JFM or something. And I did it for years, and it was amazing. But I'd never been to the station before. But they would brag about having Vance on their station.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
JFN.
Yeah.
Are you speaking Japanese on when you're on air here, or are you speaking English?
Mostly English. They want me to speak English because
listen to the voice, Pai. You want to hear that voice in English.
my Japanese is just so. It's not. They would rather that I do it in English, and they think that sounds cool. So that's what I do.
Okay.
He's so good.
Yeah.
I love it.
Okay. I guess maybe I want to hear one more radio story. I'm trying to think. So we got the Kalapana connection. We got the.
I'll give you one.
Okay, all right.
Okay, this is a good one. You know, at the radio station, we always have a template. There's a piece of paper there. And after you finish doing the interview with the artist, we have the piece of paper that says, "Hi, I'm so-and-so, and you're listening to Kamasami Kong on FM 802, right? It's a piece of paper like that. And every artist we would give that, and they would say like, "Hi, I'm Cyndi Lauper, and you're listening to Kamasami Kong," you know, like, and it was kind of deadpan, right?
Yeah.
And we had this one artist came in. His name is James Brown. And I did an interview with him. We had a good time. It was maybe our third or fourth interview. And I said, "James, can you do an ID for me? Here's the template. Here's a paper. Just insert your name." James said, "I don't need no paper. I don't need no paper. I'll show you how to do this." I thought, okay, well, let's see what's going on. Tape rolling? Engineer says, rolling. I said, "James, you're on." James goes, "Hi, this is James Brown, and you're listening to Kamasami Kong on Funky 802.
Oh, wow.
Kamasami, hit the button, and you got to get something. Hit it, Kong. Hit it, hit it, hit it. Ow!"
One take.
One take.
Amazing.
And of course, right after he said, "Ow," I would go into, "I feel good."
That's awesome.
Just launch the song, right? I still have that. You can find that.
Oh man,
That's awesome.
On
you have
YouTube.
to keep that.
Yeah,
You got to keep that.
Oh, it's gold.
yeah.
Yeah.
Platinum.
I don't understand. I mean, I don't do that much morning radio, but both of you guys, you must experience this. You know, artists come in, it's early in the morning, and I guess because there's no actual audience in the room, they're kind of lazy. They're just going through the motions and stuff. But it's like, you're reaching hundreds of thousands of people right now, and if you were standing in front of 100,000 people, you'd put on a show. You know, you'd put some effort into this.
Right.
Yeah.
But because it's just you and somebody in a booth, I don't know, for some reason.
Well, it's also because sometimes you're asking an artist to be in the studio at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, but
You're tired.
we do this for a living.
Yeah.
And it's hard to wake up that early. So to ask the artist to do it who's been up doing a show
And been out drinking with his friends throughout the night, and they come into the studio, and it's like, oh my God.
and they're in Hawaii, so they're like, yeah, let's go. And then the next day, the manager's like, hey, by the way, you got that show with Kong.
Their concert is already sold out.
Yeah.
They gotta promote
they're
it.
like, oh my God,
okay.
I guess so. I guess
so. So you try to give them a little bit of leeway, and then generally, if you've been doing this for a while, I don't know, you can kind of get them to warm up.
Yeah.
So
Most artists are pretty good about
Yeah.
it. You know, I mean, the real pros, they give you the best interviews all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the guys who are trying to make it, who are trying to come up, who have something that they need to prove. Those are the ones who, you know, they just don't come up to par.
Because the ones that have been established, you ask them for a drop, and they're like, oh yeah, no
Sure,
problem.
no
just
problem.
tell me, and like he was saying, you tell them what you want them to say, and they just bam, 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 they knock out like 5 of them.
Yeah.
And they go, good,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. I guess they know if they do it well, they can get out of there even faster too.
Yeah.
And whatever they're saying is gonna make it on the air, because somebody like Kong will say, oh, I can put this song under that, it'll, you know, so it's going to hit this post, and by that time, bang, we're good. And what's good too is he always, because you emphasize the artist first, it's not about Kong necessarily, because you're mentioning that already, but it's more about the fact that this artist is there and doing this
thing. And part of the radio community, I guess, of that area.
Yeah.
When I bring an artist in to do an interview, I always it's like peeling a banana. I'm peeling the banana for my listeners so that they can get to know the person that I'm talking to, that I'm interviewing. That's the key point, to try to make the stars shine. You know, that's the whole point. It's not about me interviewing them. It's about finding out who they are so that the listeners can get to know their fan or their idol better.
Well, with that, we will get to know you a little better, Kamasami Kong.
You're putting me on the spot here.
We have our question that we ask all of our guests.
This is going to be an interesting one, man.
This will be an interesting one.
Should I be shaking in my
No.
boots?
It's no big deal.
You used to talk about this,
I know more boots. I only get slippers today.
We technically are a music channel, so
Okay.
we do have one music question.
Uh-huh.
And the question goes like this. if you were stranded on a desert island for all of eternity and it could only take 3 albums with you to listen to for the rest of the time, what would those 3 albums be?
How long do I have to answer this question?
All day. We're cruising in Kamakura, Japan. I mean, it's
beautiful.
it's a good time right now.
Well, that question comes up a lot, but I think one would be Oscar Peterson. I would definitely bring Oscar Peterson. Oscar Peterson, probably the best keyboard player ever in the world.
Yeah.
I might also bring Bach. I would definitely bring Bach, so I like the way the flow of his music helps me to think. And for fun, I might bring either Fire Sign Theater. You know what Fire Sign Theater is?
I don't know what Fire Sign. That's a deep pool.
What is that?
Fire Sign Theater. Oh, okay. You have to do your research about this. Fire Sign Theater. Trust me, funny stuff. It's a comedy. It's more than just comedy. They're skits. They're plays, and so it's extremely funny. And I might. What else would I bring? Maybe Gabby Pahinui. Something by Gabby.
Nice.
His music is just timeless.
Yeah. Well, thanks, man. It's been a real honor. I've always just like admired you from afar. I've always wanted to be a radio guy, but I just knew that it wasn't good. So,
well, you want to be a radio guy?
Well,
I'm going to give you a chance right now. What I want you to do is an ID for me. You can do it. Trust me, you can do it. Let me guide you through this. Hi, you're listening to Kamasami Kong.
Oh, okay.
On what's the name of your podcast?
On the Hisessions Hawaii podcast.
Okay, and you say that.
Hi, you're listening to... See?
Cut two.
All right. Hi, you're listening to Kamasami Kong on the Hisessions Hawaii podcast.
Now, come on, put some energy into it.
Give it
some pizzazz.
Okay.
There's millions of people watching, John.
Millions are people who watch.
Aloha! You're listening to Kamasami Kong on the Hisessions Hawaii podcast.
There you go.
Very good. Look at the applause from the back.
Yeah.
All right.
The applause coming in from the back. There
But
you
then
go.
you didn't introduce yourself, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, usually you say your name.
Yeah. Okay, one more time.
Man.
That was all the energy you had.
Hello, I'm John Masato, and you're listening to Kamasami Kong on the...
Your name.
Yeah, I said that was-
Oh, yeah, no. I thought you're listening to John Yamasato.
Say my name?
Yeah.
Oh. Hey, everybody, you're listening to John Yamasato on the Hisessions Hawaii podcast. Don't miss it.
Oh, that was aggressive, John.
Wow.
A little angry, yeah.
Yeah, a little angry, bro.
It's like your kid stole something.
But that's why you guys are the professionals. That's why you guys are professionals. All right. Okay. But no, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
I really appreciate we really appreciate it. And yeah, hopefully we'll get to do this again sometime. Whenever you're in Honolulu, let us know.
All right. I'll definitely do that.
Many more stories. We're going to just sit you down and go, stories.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that'll be
We're just going to press record and not talk.
Yeah.
I've got a few more.
We'd love to hear it. When are you coming back to Hawaii?
Probably in September or October. I'll be back again.
Okay.
I'll be back
If
home.
you got time for us, we would love to have you
Absolutely.
back on. Yeah.
We'll go to Like Drive-In.
There you go.
We'll go there where it's not there anymore.
I
Just
wish.
Think of the food.
So
that was
where
there.
do you go now instead of Like? What's the?
It's pretty much Zippy's because
Zippy's?
it's the only place
Zippy's,
open.
yeah,
anymore.
I mean,
everything
Rainbows,
closes at 9
Rainbow
o'clock.
Bakery.
Yeah, I mean, we take out from Ruger
Yeah,
as well,
Ruger.
Ruger Market. But yeah, there's nothing like Like anymore. Not the 24-hour. You know, that was the great part about it because it's 24-hour. But even Zippy's now, they're not all 24
They're
hours.
open till
Is that
12.
right?
Yeah, they're open till 11, 12
Yeah,
usually.
they don't do the
That's it.
24-hour anymore.
Yeah.
But then people don't come 24 hours because nowadays the COVID thing just screwed everybody up.
Yeah.
And you know, you would go to Zippy's at like midnight because you had just gotten out of a concert or and then you're just going to hang out, you know, with everybody. But people don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
So that's
They
the
had a
big
great
change.
jukebox in Like too. I
Yeah.
used to love the jukebox in there because they had lots of local music on the jukebox.
Yeah.
You know, I want to ask you one last favor.
Okay.
Okay.
shoot.
After this ends,
Yeah.
would you please, it would be an honor if you could do my voicemail on my cell phone.
Sure.
Thanks so much. That'd be awesome.
Okay.
We got that on
No
tape
problem.
to make sure it happened.
Yeah.
Definitely, not a problem.
Kamasami Kong, everybody.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks everybody. We will see you next week.